You know, Jesus says that I have the highest IQ of any woman on the planet. And he said, Gail, it's okay to say it because it's true. You're not just boasting, it's a fact. And I said, really? And he said, yes. He says it's a combination of wisdom, emotional IQ, as well as just general intelligence. When I take the tests, they say I'm about 130, but Jesus says the tests can't measure emotional IQ and wisdom, which he factors in as part of IQ. So I'm going to prove to you that I have genius emotional IQ. I understand Loree McBride and why Zach Knight has accepted Jesus and Loree has not. You know what Loree's problem is? This is my genius emotional IQ coming in here. Imagine that you were a child and you never got a spanking in your life, and everybody just raised you to think you were physical perfection. She's a good-looking woman. I'll admit that. She's got like a model figure. She looked good in a bikini and all this stuff. Um, the problem is she was born, she was created in a Jesuit cloning lab to compete with me for Brent Spiner because Brent Spiner had fallen in love with me. And the Jesuits found my King David and Catherine the Great genetic profile threatening. And they created Loree McBride in the cloning labs to make sure that he never married me. And her goal has been to take Brent Spiner from me. She's been very frustrated. She was created in Jesuit cloning labs about 1992. We've executed many Loree McBrides since then, but she has like thousands and thousands of clones. So she never dies. It's like she pops up like cockroaches everywhere. She was created to have the desire to be Brent Spiner's wife and to take him from me and make sure I never marry him. And she feels for this reason, she's entitled to have Brent Spiner as her husband. The problem is the real Brent Spiner can't stand her. And that's because they're two totally different people. She's basically a big spoiled brat, never had a spanking in her life, used to always getting her way. And she's got a very strong sex drive, almost stronger than a man's sex drive. A very strong sex drive, a very lustful, violent sex drive. And she enjoys raping men. And she probably rapes women too, using a dildo and stuff. But she enjoys rape. It makes her feel powerful. It makes her feel like she's physical perfection. She actually gets turned on with the thought of raping Brent Spiner or any. She especially enjoys raping a masculine man. And that's because she gets turned on when she demasculates a man. She hates masculinity. And she wonders why the masculine men don't want her. It's because she hates manliness. She despises Donald Trump. In fact, she is behind the liberals and the alt-leftists that are opposing Donald Trump right now. And every time you go to her Twitter page, all she talks about is horrible things about Trump. She can't stand men. She doesn't like men. And that's why she doesn't like Zach Knight. Zach Knight has accepted Jesus. You know why Zach Knight's accepted Jesus and she hasn't? That's because Zach Knight found love in his life with Rule 13. Loree McBride is incapable of love. She is full of herself, and until she gets out of herself, she will never find love and she will never turn to Jesus. As long as she keeps thinking that the whole world revolves around her, and right now all she cares about is that she feels like she needs to justify her self-centeredness. And she's basically on a big temper tantrum, like a big spoiled brat, always used to having her way, not used to being blocked. And of course, Satan finds her attitude just lovely because that's basically what he's like. So that's the problem. That's the problem. She won't face up to her sins. She just she justifies them by living in a delusional world. What's ironic is she accuses me of being in a delusional world, and she's in the delusional world. The delusion that she's living in is that she thinks she can win a man's heart by changing him. You can never find love until you are willing to accept the person the way they are, to see their good side, and to build that up. When all you want to do is marry somebody to help them in your own self-worship and make you feel like you're the most important, grandiose person in the world, you will never find love. Because that's the opposite of love. Love is losing yourself into another. The opposite of love is being full of yourself and thinking that you are the only thing that matters and that everything else is irrelevant, which is Loree McBride's attitude. So the way she maintains her delusion is that people who don't fit into that delusion, like she doesn't understand me at all, because I've got a lot of love in my life. There's true love between me and Brent Spiner, plus I got a marriage list of men that love me. And she says, that's impossible. That's just crazy. That's fairy tales. It's impossible for love to exist because, well, she doesn't understand it because she's full of herself. She can't admit that there are people in this world that are not self-centered, who are willing to lose themselves into another in order to build that other person up, and who don't think that they're the center of the universe. So she thinks everybody's like her. And I've noticed sinful people tend to project their sins onto others. And because she's so self-centered, when I say things like I've got the highest IQ, or Jesus calls me his favorite, she goes, oh, Jesus would never have a favorite. Actually, I'm a little stumped, and I asked Jesus about it, but the reason she says that is because that's part of her delusion. If you read the Bible, Jesus does have favorites. I mean, like the nation of Israel was kind of like God's favorite for a while there. But even though he has favorites, he's very fair, you know. He doesn't excuse sin in his favorites, and he certainly hasn't with me. So if you want to be jealous of me for being God's favorite, you got to understand he expects a lot more out of me for that reason. It's not easy being his favorite, because Satan hates me for it, and I get a lot of persecution. So, anyways, what she does is, if somebody won't acknowledge her perfection and play her game and help her promote her delusion that the whole world revolves around her, she just rationalizes that to herself by saying that person is mentally ill because they don't acknowledge her perfection, her superiority. She says, well, I'm obviously superior because that's how I managed to get it printed all over the presses that I'm married to a Hollywood star. He couldn't resist me. When I pulled off my shirt and showed him my breasts and my body, he just drooled after me. And Gail just doesn't understand that her dreamland view of Brent Spiner is a delusion. Actually, it's not a dreamland view of Brent Spiner. Back in 1992, I saw greatness in Brent. I thought he was like Jesus in his heart. And that's what made me fall in love with him. And when I found out about Loree McBride, I got a little confused because it didn't seem like he would want her, because I knew he made a music album for me, Old Yellow Eyes is Back. And she has kept that music from going mainstream because she knows that. She's trying to force him to enforce her delusion. And there's one problem, Loree McBride. You're going to have to face reality. And the reality is this. There are people in the world that are capable of true love. Okay? Even though you just think it's not possible because you don't understand love at all. Because you're so self-centered, you don't understand that there are people that are not as self-centered as you are. Okay? Another delusion that you've got is you think that it's, well, that's my meatloaf. Oh, okay. I did that so I wouldn't forget about it. Let me turn the oven off. So I'm cooking meatloaf. Another delusion that she has is that it's wrong to be masculine. You say that's a delusion? Yeah. Well, see, first of all, you got to understand this woman's mindset. She thinks the whole world revolves around her. And she rejects masculine men because they reject her. And she gets back at them by trying to force them to she thinks if she has enough, if she gives them enough hot sex, she can get them to forget about their manliness and become so excited with all the hot sex she gives them that they're going to love her just for that alone. But this is her delusion. Her delusion is she doesn't realize that God created men they have a need to feel masculine. Most men. I realize there are the homos out there that are different, but most men are created to, they're not happy if they don't think they're a real man. And Loree despises that about men. In fact, any man who's like that, like Donald Trump, or my Brent Spiner, or Matthew McConaughey, or Gerard Butler, or any man who's masculine, she despises that. She, instead of admiring their manliness and considering it a good trait, she tries to tear them down. Why? Because if she has to admit that there are men out there that care about their manliness, and when she knows she despises manliness, she knows that it's true that some men don't find her attractive. Oh, that just blows her bubble. She's got this delusion that she's the most irresistible, attractive, knockout woman on the planet, that every man drools after her. And it just makes her feel so upset that it's possible that she may not be the hottest woman on the planet. And that's why she's so obsessed with me, because I got a marriage list of all these hot guys that like me. And so she's jealous. And she's competing with me. And as part of her jealousy, she's taken control of the media and the internet, and she's putting lies all over saying that, that all the hot men like her, and she's married to Brent Spiner. And she's hoping that if she keeps promoting this lie, that eventually Brent Spiner's just going to give up and let her have her way and just admit that she's so hot that he has to marry her whether he likes it or not. But Brent Spiner is too manly to play that game. And that's her problem. So until she faces up to her sins and quits trying to justify them and refuses to, until she's willing to give up her delusion, the reality is, Loree McBride, that Jesus created men to want to be men, to want to be masculine. And your delusion is you think that a man can be happy when he loses his masculinity. That's only true of a homosexual man. The average man, you're going to have to accept the fact that God created men to want to be admired for their manliness. And until you can accept that about men, you will never get them to love you, Loree. Loree's problem is she's trying to force a man to love her who could never be her soulmate. See, Zach Knight's found his soulmate in Rule 13, and that's why he's come to Jesus, because he's decided he'd rather have love than pride. And the reason Rule 13 won Zach Knight's heart is because Rule 13 admires Zach Knight's masculinity. She worships him. She says, oh, you got the perfect penis. He's really proud of his penis. That's part of his manliness, So, and Loree despises masculinity. That's why she hates Zach Knight right now, why she hates Trump, why she actually hates Brent Spiner. But she's living in a delusion. She's telling herself, well, Brent Spiner, if I can change him and get him to be that wimpy man, which is the kind of a man who would want to have sex with her, basically until she finds love. And that's never going to happen until she learns to accept herself and is honest about who she is and honest about who her man is. She's never going to find love. So she needs to start being honest. And number one, you're not perfect, Loree McBride. And that's physical perfection and all other way. You're not perfect. And you need to realize that until you can admire a man for his manliness, they're never going to love you. Okay? You got to learn to accept a man the way he is. You will never find love. So anyway, she's going to continue living in her delusion and killing people and murdering people to force them to maintain her delusion. And that's her problem. And she's never going to come to Jesus because she's not willing to give up all the lies she believes about herself and everybody else. Okay? That's my genius IQ analysis of Loree McBride. Until she quits thinking she's the center of the universe and realizes she's got to lose herself into another to find love, she'll never come to Jesus and she'll never find love.